Welcome boys and girls, Costin here with a discussion about the top 5 biggest losers in Total War Warhammer 3, Immortal Empires. And I think it is worth mentioning the Demon Prince, Yuri, who really is a loser in every sense of the word. In fact, he's such a loser that he's not even worth a mention on this list in the top 5 spots, because we're talking about actual legendary lords that have campaigns worth playing. Yuri is a wannabe Arthas character that fails at being Arthas, and he also fails as a legendary lord from a gameplay perspective. No, this list is not about those kind of characters. It's about characters that for whatever reason in the lore thought they were much bigger and tougher than they actually were, and instead ended up failing quite miserably in a lot of different ways. But, quite crucial aspect, they are not necessarily terrible legendary lords. In fact, every single legendary lord on this list is very playable and very good. And I'll explore both aspects, the lore perspective as well as the gameplay perspective, what works for them and what doesn't necessarily work for them from both standpoints of gameplay and lore. But definitely Yuri, the Demon Prince, Daniel, whatever name you can conjure up from the bottom depths of your heart, doesn't even fit this list. Quite sad. At number 5, we have Wulfric the Wanderer. If you look at the lore of this character, he was like, I want to marry this chick, and I will do everything, including cursing the gods, in order to marry this chick, because it is my destiny. Not really a wise idea over there for Wulfric, and the Chaos Gods were not especially kind with him, so they cursed him with the gift of tongues, which in the game is represented by campaign movement range, causing fear, immune to high seas, reef, and storm attrition, as well as the Sea Fang ability. Now, hilariously enough, Wulfric actually is quite competent as a legendary lord in the game. He has the ability of teleporting his entire army across the sea and dealing with anyone that may stand in his way. That's good. What's less good about his entire campaign dynamic is, while he definitely works from the perspective of getting things done, and as long as you can get things done in the game, you're pretty solid as a legendary lord, undeniably so. But while he definitely works, he kind of falls short compared to some others in the gameplay department, really, in a lot of different ways. Actually, why am I really wasting time over here with regards to this when we could just go over here to Skeggy and beat the living piss out of those guys, right? And that would work significantly better by being able to give us Skeggy. There is definitely a good level of potential in this campaign, undeniably so. It's just that potential is limited by a couple of things, or rather it's the case of anything you can do, I can do better that Trog has. Because you see, it's all well and good to talk about the potential of a campaign and the capabilities of a legendary lord. You do start with a lot of money, for what that's worth. You do start with the ability of getting Skeggy, if you want it. You do start with X, Y, and Z capability, and that's not something to be sneezed at. But again, it's not really covering yourself in glory in this campaign. Like, if you could just capture Skeggy as is, as a settlement, you would be able to get Marauder, Berserkers, and Champions, and shockingly, you might be able to pull it off, really, in a campaign. And if you do so, that will be great for you. And his special skill line also gives him a ton of benefits for Hunter of Champions, etc., etc. Here's the thing, though. What I mean by Trog is this. Trog just has a better unique research tree, because you get 50% income from sacking settlements. It's like Norska already a race that's swimming in money, and it's only for your faction leader, so it's not even for every army that you have. Well, Trog gets extra population surplus, a unique mechanic that blows everything that Wulfric has under the water, and the best part about playing Trog is that you know his unique mechanic of teleporting his own army as well as other armies? Yeah, Trog can also gain that by confederating Wulfric. And when you're playing a Trog campaign, you're almost certainly going to end up in a conflict with Wulfric, or you're going to seek that conflict out. So number 5, Wulfric the Wanderer. Wulfric the loser, really, if you want to go down that path. At number 4, we have Manfred von Karstein. Honestly, he should be really at the top of this list, and surprisingly, he's not at the top of this list. Actually, the reason he's not at the top of this list is really for gameplay reasons, not really lore reasons. From a loser perspective, Manfred tops every list imaginable in the known universe. I mean, this is a guy who is so self-centered, so narcissistic, that he would rather destroy the world if he was left in the trash bin. I mean, this is a guy who was responsible for so much pain and suffering throughout hundreds of years, if I'm not mistaken, in Warhammer history, that he deserves his own special category for the things he has done to pretty much everyone else. And yet somehow Games Workshop has this idea in their heads, let's keep this guy alive and not bring Vlad in, say, Age of Sigmar. I mean, I suppose you can fail upwards in a game or in a tabletop series. Though, I suppose Manfred has a purpose, which is to be everyone's punching bag when it's not Beastman or Skaven, whatever you might want to call it. There is definitely that particular perspective from a lore reasons. But here's the thing about Manfred. While we all laugh at that notion, his campaign, it works. It actually does work. It's just also the least version of any Vampire Counts campaign that you can imagine. Yes, Recruit Defeated Legendary Lords mod is an actual thing that surprisingly does deliver good amount of things in a campaign. Like, for instance, just me being able to wall up Cetra right there as an example. Though I would probably have to fight him manually in that particular circumstance. But hey, you can't have everything you want. Maybe that is really the lesson to Manfred in one of the things that he would never, ever in a million lifetimes actually understand, learn, or consider. Because Manfred does not care about the opinion of others in any way, shape, or form. He wouldn't be Manfred otherwise, would he? If he actually cared for a moment about anyone else other than himself. And maybe that is telling of his character, because you see, as a legendary lord, he's actually one of the very few ones in the game, or the only one in the game, that does not have a special skill line. So he's not even capable of buffing himself, instead he's focused on his magic tricks. To be certain, he does have the Books of Nagash as a unique mechanic, but so do many other people that actually have a skill line. So having the Books of Nagash as a kind of thing that you can double if you conquer Drakenhof, I mean, I suppose the spiraling effect of Manfred is really on display over here. I mean, maybe from a gameplay standpoint it doesn't work quite as well, but the intention was there, clearly, from the developers. Make a shitty campaign for a shitty character. If that was the intended purpose over there, I say, good job, Creative Assembly, you really nailed it. Because who exactly likes Manfred? I mean, let's be real here. Who exactly is like looking at this guy and saying, yes, I totally want this guy to be one of the best legendary lords in the game? No. He's that pathetic of a loser in his campaign, in the lore, and in Age of Sigmar. Please applaud. At number 3, we have Greasus Goldtooth. Now, Greasus is a very strong and very capable over-tyrant of the ogres in both the lore and the actual game. However, he committed the cardinal sin in which he underestimated Grimgor, and then lost his life doing so. It's kind of a tragedy, if you want to consider what happened to Greasus as some kind of tragedy in the grand mythos of Warhammer. I'm not quite sure anyone else would agree with that sentiment, but maybe some people would take that particular view. It's like it's a tragedy that Grimgor delivered the knockout punch to someone who was like, oh yes, I'm gonna drop my weapon against someone who's clearly very powerful and capable, aka Grimgor, who gave me the fight of my life just a moment ago, and I'm like gonna try and choke him to death just because I have a thing for that. Yeah, Greasus is a complete failure of a character, really. I mean, imagine defeating Grimgor and not taking the finishing blow just because you're that arrogant. That is a kind of loser level that is biblical. On the flip side, however, he actually is quite strong as a legendary lord. He has a strong position, and that gives him a ton of money and economic potential in his campaign, including having the mint over here, having a landmark that gives him a ton of money and increases income from trade tariffs, and then also having tradable resources and good relationship with Cathay. Furthermore, he has extra camps as the ogre, the best camping. He has an extra camp limit. He has the capability of getting tons of tradable resources. He has Over Tyrant, Lord and Hero Recruit rank. He gets hero capacity to all heroes. The capability is there, boys and girls. I don't need to extol the virtues of Greasus. I think they're perfectly on display for everyone who wants to take a look. And I'm not talking about just the fact that he's big. I'm literally talking the crown, the mantle, the fact he's being carted around on a wagon by two Noblars that apparently have Superman level strength for whatever unknowable reason. I guess it was the animation aspect for Creative Assembly. That's the reason they chose two Noblars over there. Kind of silly, because in the actual lore, Greasus is being carted around by an entire army of Noblars, and he has a tendency of eating or crushing a couple of them every time he is moved. Yeah, that's Greasus Goldtooth in a nutshell. Take whatever perspective you want on him, but if you're looking to play a campaign, he's pretty good. I won't dispute that. Very good, in point of fact. I actually quite like his campaign, but make no mistake, from a lore perspective, he failed. Failed massively. And don't make that mistake. If you're playing Greasus and you have the opportunity to wipe out Grimgor, take it. Do not hesitate, because Grimgor for certain will not hesitate. At number 2, we have Malekith. He hates snow, and he's an edgelord, so he's basically Warhammer Fantasy's version of Anakin Skywalker. But here's the thing, Anakin Skywalker at least had an excuse. Malekith has absolutely zero excuses for turning out the way he did. Well, I guess you can always blame it all on Morathi if you want to, though I'm not quite sure that's a justification for everything that a sane person did. Because, let's be clear, Morathi is Morathi. Simple as that. Blaming it on her when Malekith had, within his full knowledge, exactly what kind of person Morathi was, and still doing the unspeakable things that he did, it does not lend itself well to an excuse. You can't use Mama as was a bad meanie to me as an excuse for the things that Malekith has done. Now, from a campaign perspective, this is where he actually is pretty good. So, for instance, he has a sweet province over here in the Spiteful Peaks that he can raise Valkia towards getting first. He can make an alliance with Grombrindle if you so desire, which is kind of weird to think about, you know, the whole vengeance thing, but his campaign is pretty straightforward, pretty powerful. He gets access to a lot of units. He has a port, so he can get access to a Black Ark if he so desires. He has landmarks. He has a bunch of benefits as well in his skill line. Well, minus the fail that his dual skill line nature doesn't necessarily work quite as well. But when you think of things like can come from slaves, diplomatic relations with Dark Elves, control, also with efforts redoubled, which is a pretty damn big benefit, or you can go Ward Leader, upkeep benefit, post-battle loot. Income from looting and sacking settlements, 100%. Lord Recruit rank faction-wide, all lords. Income from post-battle loot and magic item drop chance. Regardless of what you're going for, Malekith, a tyrant or Ward Leader, you're going to get something really good. He's still on this list simply because he did the things that he did in the lore, and he was an edgelord for, what, thousands of years in the lore, I believe? I actually don't know if anyone can explain this to me. How in the world are Malekith and Morathi alive? You know, I'm just kind of wondering about that one, because as far as I see it, there's no good explanation for it. And so I'm just going to say there is no good explanation for why they're still alive, considering that they should long be dead, everything else being equal. But then again, I guess he wouldn't be Malekith if everything else was equal, right? I'm sure he did some like, with Morathi, you get why she's still alive. With Malekith, I never quite understood it. So maybe someone in the comment section of this video has an explanation for that, because I really don't know. But as far as the campaign is concerned, he's actually real good, pretty straightforward, and I think a lot of people just don't get that Dark Elves are a much better race within the current confines of Warhammer 3 than they've ever been, even in Warhammer 2. I understand why people dislike the way they've been done, but from my view, when you look at Black Arcs, when you look at a sheer ridiculous number of armies, hell, even the polls I've done on this subject indicate that a lot of people actually do think Malekith is a pretty damn good Legendary Lord, and a lot more people believe that Dark Elves are a much stronger race than the perception exists. Maybe it's worth something looking into. And finally, at number 1 is, of course, Tretch Craventail. What, did you expect anyone else at the top of this list? I'm not quite sure what you expected over here. Tretch as well might be a non-entity from the perspective of Warhammer lore, so that's the reason he's at the top of this list. On top of that particular nonsense, he's actually quite very good as a Legendary Lord of the Skaven. He really embodies the treacherous, sneaky aspect of the Skaven from a gameplay perspective. So I guess he is the perfect Legendary Lord for the Skaven. I'm not quite sure what to say on that specific subject. What I will, however, stress out when we're dealing with Tretch Craventail here in a campaign is that he is not one to underestimate in any way, shape, or form. He will swarm you in clan rats and storm vermin, and even that beginning doom wheel has actually a bigger problem than one might think to deal with. So mess with Tretch at your own peril. He gets Devastating Flanker for all units in his army. Gee, I wonder what that's going to do for the doom wheel. He does melee attack plus 13 for ambushes during and after retreating when attacked. So, oh, you thought you've caught up to Tretch. Congrats. His clan rats have become, I don't know, armor cossars or equivalent like that. And he does get even bigger benefits for Storm Vermin as well as various other benefits. To be sure, a lot of these benefits can be gained by confederating him, so he's kind of useless from that point of view. But, this is the big but in his campaign. Every time you declare war against a faction playing as Tretch, you get Vanguard deployment for all your units, ambush success chance plus 25%, so your stock stance is much better for it, and enemy battle reinforcement time is increased by 50%. So even if you're fighting outnumbered, let alone the benefits you have when fighting against most opponents, Devastating Flanker is no joke, you are still pretty good. And you also get army ability uses plus 3 for the menace below. And here's the thing about this benefit. It's effectively a secondary Legendary Lord effect, because you get better Scurry Away, you get the Courage for Storm Vermin, you get additional armor and base weapon damage per experience rats for rank for clan rats and Storm Vermin. And every time you declare war, this benefit increases. So from the very beginning of your campaign, you can get 6 turns of it, and the more factions you declare war on, the more it's going to do. It is an incredibly potent, powerful, and undeniably ridiculous benefit. That's why he's actually number 1 on this list, because, you know, I talk around a lot about this list, like losers and characters and all that, but as I stated, and I was very clear on this from the beginning of this video, these are actual Legendary Lords that are worth playing. It's just that they are not meaningful from a lore perspective, and there's no one that represents that dynamic far better than Tretch. From a gameplay standpoint, he's genuinely a monster if you're playing his campaign. From a lore standpoint, he's a non-entity if you're considering things. Like, imagine a campaign where you can just smack around everyone that stands in your path very clearly and very efficiently and still keep going and have time for brunch or whatever. And that is what you get when you're playing a Tretch campaign. You are not going to be screwing around with this campaign. Clan Rat Spears with that kind of melee attack is frankly absurd when you're thinking about the kind of benefits that you can and will get in this particular campaign. And really, just confederating him alone can give you one really damn powerful army, but maybe that's really the key with Tretch. He's such a non-entity, and yet if you confederate every other Legendary Lord of Skaven, which by the way, you can confederate Queek, you can go all the way to Cathay, you can go into Kislev if you want to for Fraud. If you do that, you're going to be in a really damn good position. That's Recruit Defeated Legendary Lords just doing what Recruit Defeated Legendary Lords does. Your initial enemies are a non-entity compared to the capability that you bring to the table. And that is not something that you easily say for any Legendary Lord. So, yes, Tretch is a joke. No, you should not treat him as a joke, because it might be the last damn thing that you actually do during the course of your campaign. So do that at your own peril, because the guy's got power. So don't make the mistake a lot of people have made, because I've seen a lot of people that fought themselves very tough and suddenly stood up to the might of Tretch Cramatel and discovered they were not as tough as they thought they could be. Like, seriously. It is ridiculous. He is a monolith. He is powerful. He is really strong. And he might be the last thing you see, if you even see him at all. Like seriously, like just the amount of ridiculous nonsense that I'm up to over here on turn freaking free is something that should give a lot of people pause when dealing with their own campaigns, because Tretch is driven by a great deal of hunger, and it should not be underestimated just how fucking thirsty he is. He's kind of like Henry of Skalitz in Total War Warhammer. A no one that you don't want to mess with, because it might be the last damn thing you will ever do. I mean, dare I say that he's the John Wick of Total War Warhammer? I'll let you guys decide. Costin signing out.